A Flourish writer believes in the power of her story, the gospel made alive as a declaration to this generation. She cultivates the courage to dream, write, and publish the story inside her. Welcome to Flourish Writers.
Okay.
Hi, I am Mindy Kiker, and welcome to the Flourish Writers Conference. We have the pleasure of chatting today with Patrice Gopo. Welcome, Patrice.
Hey, welcome, or thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It is our pleasure. And where are we chatting to you from today?
So I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we had snow, I think, last week, and now it's going to be 60 degrees today. So we kind of fluctuate.
That's awesome. And now you did not grow up in North Carolina. You have some exotic locations in your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the child of Jamaican immigrants, and I was born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska. So that's where I spent all my childhood up until I went to college. And I went to college and I lived in a variety of places before I moved to South Africa, to Cape Town, because I ended up marrying a man from Zimbabwe, and we met in South Africa. And when we got married, I moved to Cape Town, and I was there for a couple of years before we decided to come to the States. And we picked Charlotte, North Carolina as the place to settle. So that's what brought us here.
Amazing. So you and I share some South African passion in our bones. And I was across on the other side of South Africa in Pietermaritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal for many years. And we lived in Kruger Park, and we spent some time in Port Elizabeth. So, and the Cape has to be one of the most stunning places in the whole wide world, doesn't it?
It is beautiful, but I often tell people, because people say it's one of the most stunning, which I absolutely agree, but I did grow up in Anchorage as well, which is mountains behind, water in front, and it's a different kind of beauty, but it is stunning too. So I feel just like a real sense of gratitude and privilege that I've been able to witness living in these two remarkably gorgeous places.
You have a geographical blessing, Patrice.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, and then my parents are from Jamaica, which is another beautiful place.
Yes. So you are an essayist, and that's why we're chatting to you today, because I think there are a lot of people out there who are curious what that is.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And honestly, it took me a couple of years into my writing life to fully recognize that this is what I was doing, that I was writing personal essays. And I often will tell people that writing a personal essay, it's really conveying a personal story from your life. So that's what I think of. Now, if you think about the word essay, in its verb form, it means to try. And so an essay really is an attempt, or you trying to understand something more about the world, or more about your experience, or about just what's happened. You're trying to make sense of things. That's what I often tell people, is as I'm writing essays, I am making sense of my personal experience. And so that's really what it is to be a personal essayist. Now, there certainly are other types of essays, like critical essays, just other variations out there, but I am primarily a personal essayist. And when I say I'm a personal essayist, I am writing personal stories from my life, and I'm trying to understand what these experiences or what these stories might mean.
So how does that differ to just journaling?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. And I will say this, that I actually believe there are a lot of people out there who are writing personal essays, and they just don't realize that's what they're doing, because maybe they've just never thought of the personal essay as something beyond that 5-paragraph essay that we learn in high school. Many of us will have learned that in high school. So the essay form sounds like a 5-paragraph essay from high school, or it sounds like a college entrance, thing that you need to write. And this is really different. And I feel like journaling can be a pathway into an essay, but journaling itself is typically not an essay. I feel like when I am journaling personally, I am just doing this kind of like verbal dump on the page of my emotions and my experiences and what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. And it's maybe in its most raw form when I think about my journal. And so what I have found when I am writing some sort of personal narrative, when I am relaying an experience and writing a personal essay, I may go back to my journals to see what was it that I was actually feeling in that moment. What was kind of going through my head? What were some of the emotions? And that journaling can often be a pathway to help me further understand this larger story that I am reconstructing now in the personal essay. So I think journaling can be a stepping stone into an essay. It's not required. There's plenty of essays I've written that I don't go back and look at my journals, but there are some where I'm trying to think, well, what was that feeling? Because that actually happened, 3 or 4 years ago. What was that really like for me? What was I really thinking now? And sometimes it might be, I feel very different about a situation now. And part of the essay may be grappling with, why did I feel so much like that then? And now I feel this way. How did I make that leap between those? What happened? That exploration.
Yeah, I love that. And I would think when you're shifting from journaling to essay writing, you are focusing on, when you're shifting from journal to essay writing, you're focusing on your reader for the essay.
Yeah, I think that's true, that there is a focus on the reader for the essay, whereas the journal, that's for me. That's for me. I don't necessarily have ideas that people are going to go ahead at some point and read my journal. I mean, obviously that's possible, right? I'm leaving this written kind of legacy of my life in my journals, and unless I burn them or something or tell people they need to, it's possible they could get read at some point. But I'm not so much writing such that I can maybe expand something, not just for myself, but for others too.
And now you published a collection of essays titled All the Colors We Will See. And where did the idea for this project come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my essay collection, it came out in August, and I write a lot around themes of race and belonging. So as I said at the beginning, I am the daughter of Jamaican immigrants, and I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. And I grew up in this country where we're very intent on classifying people and defining experiences based on what we look like. And so growing up as the Black American daughter of immigrants, I was really trying to figure out and navigate my way through, questions of race in our country. And so that's why I found that as I was unpacking my own story, as I was writing my essays, I kept returning to similar themes around, racial identity formation, race relations, and experiences with people move from one place to the other, because these are things that were part of my life and part of my story. And just, at the heart of it, this sense of, where is my place? Where do I fit in society? So honestly, Mindy, I just started writing essays, and over time, the essays continued to mount. Like, I was writing more and more. And there was a teacher at one point who said to me, when you start to gather multiple essays that explore similar themes, this is when you start to think about a collection of some sort. And I think to that point, I hadn't really considered that. It wasn't on my mind. I was really just kind of thinking, I'm here for this essay. I'm here to write this essay to figure this particular thing out about my life, or figure this particular thing out about kind of the world at large. And I think it was when my teacher said this to me that it really challenged me to think, oh, these things could be brought into something larger. And that was really the beginning of me beginning to imagine an essay collection. But it was still a few years away before that even started to become reality, honestly. I think at that point, I just started thinking, yeah, maybe one day I would collect all these things together. And it felt like there was this larger goal that I could be working towards, which was inspiring for me at that point, to feel like I had this larger goal. But actually, I don't think it's necessary. I think essay collections, they often come together maybe in a way that's not necessarily so intentional. So Zadie Smith, she has this essay collection called, oh goodness, I can't remember what her essay collection is called. I think it's called On Changing My Mind, or something of that nature. I can send you the link afterwards. But in the introduction to it, she says this thing along the lines of, this essay collection was written without my knowledge. And I love that, because I think it's really true for essayists, is that we may not necessarily be setting out to write a book, but we're setting out to write essays. And over time, we recognize we are people who tend to write around similar. We gather those together into a larger body of work.
Yes, I could see that. I'm sorry, I just lost my connection for a second, but I'm back.
Okay, good. We're making it work.
We're blessing this internet connection today.
Yes.
So when you were doing all this writing and the essays were mounting, was this for a blog, or were you sending your essays around somewhere? How were you publishing them?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I will say this, when I started writing my essays, I was very new to this writing space, and I didn't necessarily know the many places that personal essays show up. So I was not writing a blog. I was working on these essays. They honestly, they took me a long time to really write, because I felt like, to try and figure out what it was that I was saying or what it was I was feeling, it just took me some time. But the thing is, along the way, I discovered literary journals, which were very foreign to me. I had never really heard of literary journals beyond things like the New Yorker or Harper's or something like that. But there were just tons of them out there. It was this whole world of places where people published work, really wonderful work that I liked. And I started researching and finding out about these literary journals and sending my work out to publication at these different literary journals, some of them print publication, some of them online publication. So that's kind of where I got started with publishing my work. Now, my work did end up going on over time to be finding homes in some more mainstream places. So I've written an essay for the New York Times. I wrote an essay for the Washington Post, some more like places people would have heard of. But honestly, my heart still belongs to literary journals. I just love the style of work that they produce. And there's so many great ones out there that I feel just a deep connection to, that I feel like, oh yeah, you're really getting what I'm trying to do here. So, but what I will say about that, just as an aside for your audience, is that there are personal essays everywhere. People are publishing them everywhere, and you may not even realize it. So sometimes opinion pieces in newspapers, those would be personal commentaries, and those are personal essays. I've seen it, in magazines will sometimes have like a final essay at the back or something like that. Yeah, I mean, they're just showing up everywhere. A lot of times people's blog posts are very short personal essays. So, you find them all over the place if you kind of just start being more aware of them. I remember one time submitting to the American Journal of Nursing, because their last page is a personal essay that has to do with nursing of some sort. My mother's a nurse, and I wrote this essay and I submitted it there. It wasn't accepted, I should say that. But the point is, there was another place that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate personal essay showing up, and yet it was there. So that's really how I started finding homes, was just kind of looking and seeing, where was I seeing personal essays, and where was I seeing personal essays that I enjoyed reading, such that I might want to see my name in that publication.
And when you're submitting, are you hoping for some kind of payment, or is it a passion project, or how does that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I will say, in the beginning, I think I was really just wanting to get my work published somewhere. So the payment wasn't as much of an issue. I think in a way, publication can be a form of affirmation of your work, but I want to be careful and stress that that's not the only thing. So that to be published does not make one a writer at all. I don't believe that at all. But I think for me, as a person who doesn't have a background in writing, so I did not come to writing with a traditional education in writing. I really stepped into it and started learning about the craft of writing. So I think for me, publication was a neat step in terms of saying, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do this. But like I said, I'm hesitant to say that we need publication to give us the okay. That I don't think that, but I was thankful for it in my journey. But no, in the beginning, I was not looking for payment. But as time has gone on, and my work is, shows up in publications with greater regularity, I do receive payment now. And I am more particular about payment and receiving payment for my essays. Now, it's not always the case. There still are publications that I feel like have championed me from early on that I have like a love for, and I will still continue to offer my work to those places, even though I know they may not be able to pay me. So I think it's a bit of a balance as you figure it out and you along the way. And for me, my balance is such that I typically would like payment, but I am open to not receiving payment too.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm fascinated that you did not have a background in writing. I think in this conference, we're going to talk to a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. And so writing sort of draws people from all over the place.
Yes.
But there's something at some stage of their life, something starts to bubble up and they're like, I need to share this. Maybe it's something from the Lord. We call it like a nudge from the Holy Spirit. Like, oh, if I don't get this off my chest, I think there's really people that are going to be their lives need to be enriched by the message that I have to share.
Absolutely.
And I really want to get it out there. But if you don't have a background as a writer, you can immediately disqualify yourself. So how did you overcome that hurdle? And when did you start to think of yourself as a writer? As a writer on that awesome title.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I think it's a great question. So my background, honestly, I'm a chemical engineer. I studied chemical engineering in college, and I went on to my MBA and my Master's of Public Policy because I was interested in community development work, and I'm interested in social justice issues, and I just wanted to work with under-resourced communities, helping them start small businesses. So that was kind of my path pre-writing. When I married my husband, who I mentioned is from Zimbabwe, and we were living in Cape Town in South Africa, I didn't have a work permit. And so I actually couldn't do the work that I was trained to do. And it was in this space that I started writing. And I think the thing for me that I realized with the writing was that it was a way, an avenue to express things I cared about in a different form. So like I said, I care a lot about issues of justice. I write a lot about race and immigration and personal stories around that. And I feel like that in many ways is still some of the work I was doing with my community development, but that was just a different way of doing that. And I still feel like now I'm still in a space where I'm drawing attention to things that I care about through the power of personal storytelling. And so that's kind of how I started getting into it. And I feel like as a person who didn't particularly have a background in writing, one of the things that I felt from early on is I wanted to learn about writing. This is a big thing for me when I don't necessarily understand how a world works. So say the writing world, it wasn't my world, it wasn't my background. I want to learn how it works, and I want to basically demystify it so I have a better understanding of, what makes a good piece, like what makes something a good piece, and what makes a great essay particularly. That's what I came, as I started realizing I'm an essayist, that's what I really wanted to do. So learn about. So honestly, I have personally invested time and some money too in the craft writing. So I have read craft books. So I've checked books out at the library. I've purchased the ones that I really like a lot, and I refer to them quite a bit. I've joined writing groups. I have from time to time taken writing classes. And when I'm able to, in more recent years, I've attended writing conferences as well, because I really feel this strong sense of, I want to become better at what I do. And I just didn't believe that from right out of the gate, I knew everything there was. Now, here's the thing though, that I think is true, is there's this balance, because you could spend all this time trying to learn about writing and never write. And that's a challenge too. And so I think it's really important for one to know yourself, to know if maybe the training is, you're using it as an excuse to not write, or on the flip side, maybe you're just jumping out the gate writing, but you're not actually taking time to learn how to develop as a writer. Now, I would guess the people who are watching this are taking time to learn how to develop as a writer, because they're here and they want to learn. And I think it's a great thing. So I think there's this balance that we need to put our words out there, but also learn how we can make those words the best they could be, right? Because if you have this message to share with people, and I feel very deeply that I have a message to share with people, we want to offer it to the world in a way that people can receive it well. And part of that is growing in our skills as a writer.
Oh, you put that so well, Patrice. I applaud everything you said, and
thank you.
The balance that you drew. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about the process as well. I know I absolutely adore the William Zinsser book on writing well.
Oh yeah.
He rewrote the Strunk and White book.
Yes.
Kind of put a companion, not a rewriting, but a
right. Yes. Yes.
expansion of their work. And he said that he didn't really find his voice until he wrote that book in his early 50s. And it was because he became very thoughtful. I mean, he'd always been thoughtful about the craft of writing, and he had worked to develop himself as a writer. But when he finally consolidated what he really believed and what had become his craft, then he found his voice. And I thought that was so inspiring. And also, it could be depressing for some, depending on how old you are. Not that you have to wait till you're 50, but that he spent his lifetime developing that craft, and it really didn't all come together for decades.
Yes. I think so. I mean, I think the thing for me too, Mindy, even as you're saying that, I think what that inspires in me is a sense of, as writers, we're always learning, right? We're going to always be learning, and we can learn new things. We can be reminded of things we've learned in the past. And now that we have more skills, we're able to apply it more than we were before. And so I think I was just reading this book last night. It just a regular, book, a fiction novel. And there was a point in it where they used a certain technique that was very compelling it was kind of this list paragraph. And as I was reading it, I thought to myself, oh, I know why this works. I know why this is compelling. I see this. But I think the other thing that occurred to me too is, oh, I've seen this before in other places, but it's just always good to be reminded. This is a good thing that works. I should give this a try, and I did think I should get up right now and try and write my own. I will sometimes do that when I see something really a great technique, but I was tired and I didn't. So, but it's in my head and so I just think that sense of, if we're always people who are learning, we'll be aware when we see things out in the world that we can take and apply to our own world.
Oh yes. Yeah, for sure. And that's part of the excitement of the journey, not looking at it and thinking, how long is it going to be till I get there? But let's enjoy the journey along the way. And
I think so.
Month by month, year by year, incorporate, try new things. How does that sound in my voice? How do I turn that into something that works for my style and my subject matter?
Exactly. I think so. I think that's so true. Absolutely. And I remember in my early years of writing, back in the days, I I still get a lot of rejections, but you know, those early rejections, they just crush you because this is the first time you're putting yourself out there in the world, and to get no's or no responses, you know, it can be really distressing. I encourage people to just keep going because I think that's part of the journey. But I remember in those early days, I read something that I've held on to, and it said something along the lines of, if you keep working at this, the writer you are 6 months from now is not the writer you are today. You know, or the writer you are today will not be the writer you are 6 months from now. And I have found that to be so true, that like just to continue working, continue learning, continue writing, you're putting in the work and the effort to improving. And it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful thing. And it's just something that takes time, especially if you don't have a background in this and you didn't come to this with a background. But that doesn't preclude you from being a writer at all. It just might mean that you have more to learn from this beginning, which is great. I mean, there's so much wonderful stuff out there to help one learn.
Yeah. Well, Patrice, that is such an encouraging note to end on. Thank you so much for just sharing with us your passion about essays, how essays fit into this literary landscape. And I hope that some people will be inspired to try their hand at this style of writing.
I hope so. And I will just say, if you go to my website, patricegopo.com, I have a tab on that website called Writing Resources. And there on that tab, I list like books that I've found really helpful, conferences I've attended that I found helpful, places I've taken online classes that I found helpful, just different resources out there that you can peruse and check out and see what might potentially be useful for you. But that's patricegopo.com, and it's Writing Resources is the particular tab.
Awesome. Well, ladies, I hope you look up Patrice, and I would imagine that you might even answer emails, Patrice, if anyone has any questions for you.
I do, yes. I do answer emails. You can send me an email right through my website, patricegopo.com, and you can also subscribe to my newsletter. If you go to my website to subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll often share links to essays and podcasts that I'm listening to, things of that nature. And you can just hear a little bit more about my particular writing journey. And yeah, you can also find me on Instagram at Patrice Gopo, and my Facebook page is @PatriceGopoWrites.
Awesome. Okay, people are not going to have a hard time finding you, and I'm delighted for that because you have a lot to offer. And just thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Absolutely. This was a real delight. I appreciate it.